Alright, welcome back. In this video, we're talking about social movements and the Equal Protection Clause. So the Equal Protection Clause is the other really important clause from the 14th Amendment. So we've talked about due process already and how it led to incorporation, but the Equal Protection Clause is also very important. It said that nor shall any state deprive any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. And so essentially this has become the basis for civil rights and anti-discrimination laws. So states, according to this 14th Amendment, way back in the 1860s, they were not supposed to allow people to be treated differently based on things like race or gender, national origin, etc. Now we know that that has happened, and we have a video coming up that will talk about some of those things that have occurred throughout American history. But this video is going to focus on how we use that clause today as that basis for civil rights. So civil rights, we're talking about guarantees of protection for groups of people from discrimination. So whereas civil liberties, we're talking about protecting individual rights and freedom so that people could do things, civil rights is protecting groups of people from being discriminated against. One of the main themes throughout American history has been that struggle by different groups to finally claim and get the civil rights that they are entitled to. And so we're going to touch on a few of those here in this video. Now, one of these movements is the 1960s Civil Rights Movement. And this was the struggle for equality and social justice for African Americans and for minorities more broadly in the United States. Now we know that the Constitution through Amendments 13, 14, and 15 had done things like abolish slavery, guarantee equal protection like we just spoke about, also said that the right to vote couldn't be taken away based on race, but we know that these things did not actually fulfill that civil rights guarantee that African Americans were entitled to. So we have this social movement that seeks to obtain these rights once and for all. The next video will talk about some of the successes that were enjoyed by this movement through legislation and through further constitutional amendments. But one thing we want to highlight right now is the role of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and specifically one of our required documents, which is the letter from Birmingham jail. Now this is a beautiful document that I highly encourage every single person to read, and read it closely, read every word of it. It is a truly spectacular document. Check out the video for all the information you need to know so you can write a good essay based on that document. But what we're thinking about in this context right now is how Dr. King was really demanding that Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment, the words of the Declaration of Independence, that they actually be fulfilled and that they actually start living up to those words, the government I mean, when it comes to the rights of African Americans and minorities in the United States. Additionally, we have the women's rights movement. The National Organization for Women was a strong interest group in the 1970s that took the lead in this movement of trying to get equality for women on a variety of fronts. Again, the next video will talk about some of the successes that were enjoyed by the National Organization for Women and more broadly the women's rights movement. A third social movement has been the pro-life movement. Now, the last video we talked about the right to privacy and that it guaranteed the right for a woman to obtain an abortion. But what has happened over time since that case in Roe v. Wade in 1973 is that courts have allowed restrictions to be made to that right to obtain an abortion. So while that right can't be taken away, states cannot ban the right to an abortion. They are allowed to limit access to an abortion. So they can do things like limiting the time within a pregnancy when that can take place, also making very strict standards about the types of places or clinics where an abortion can be obtained, and other things like that. And that has been the focal point of the pro-life movement, and they have found success at both the state and federal level at restricting and limiting abortion, which they are obviously opposed to. So these are just a few examples of social movements, and again we see that the Equal Protection Clause tends to be at the heart of these movements as they demand more rights and demand that their civil rights be acknowledged. So in the next video we'll talk more specifically about some of the successes enjoyed by social movements. Till next time, this has been a La Money production. Thanks again for watching this video. Hope that it helped. Hit that like button for me if it did. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys next time.